Today's episode is truly something special. It's about a woman and her incredible dogs in a community that refuses to let cancer be the end of a story, but instead, the beginning of something meaningful. This is the story of a German Shepherd named Kaiserin. She lost her leg due to cancer, and her mom, Natasha, had to learn to adapt as well. But more than that, Kaiserin became a champion trick dog and, believe it or not, a painter. These paintings are sold now to help raise money and awareness for other tripods. This has become a mission that now helps countless pets and their families. Needless to say, this is a story of resilience, creativity, and love in its purest form. And trust me, you've never seen art quite like this. Welcome back to A Dog's Devotion, the podcast that celebrates the extraordinary bond between dogs and the people whose lives they change forever. I'm your host, Carla Basaki, and today is a really special episode. This one is really going to capture the spirit of the show. It's how dogs don't just love us, they inspire us to do more, to be more, and to give back. We're joined by a very special guest, Natasha, a devoted volunteer and a shining example of what it means to love into action. Natasha was the owner of a champion trick dog named Kaiserin. Now, Kaiserin unfortunately got cancer and became a tripod, which means she lost a leg. Natasha didn't just adapt, she actually transformed that whole journey into something remarkable. She taught the dog to paint, and today, along with her shepherds, Schultz and Wilhelmina, they are creating art that is not only beautiful, but life-changing. Their paintings help fund pet cancer gift packages, supporting families navigating one of the hardest journeys a pet parent can face. This is a story about strength, creativity in a community that lifts each other up when it matters most, and taking what God gives us and that we don't expect and to make it into a positive. Natasha, I've been so excited to talk to you because this is, every owner's, other than when a pet passes, that's one of the hardest things to deal with. But when you have a dog that's a champion trick dog, and then poor Kaiserin gets cancer and loses a leg, that must have been such a horrific experience for you both.
Yes, definitely. First, thanks for having me. And she actually was not a champion trick dog until after she lost her leg,
No, I didn't know that.
which is actually even more impressive. We did other sorts of things before she lost a leg. We did agility and a bit of obedience and some sign work and stuff like this, but she actually became the champion trick dog after she lost a leg. So
Okay, now
on
I'm
three legs.
really floored. I'm really impressed because I thought it was before, but it was after when she was a tripod.
Yes, yes.
Well, so tell me about her. What was she like? She must have been so resilient to, after losing a leg to then become a champion trick dog.
Yeah, well, we sort of did it because I wanted to show how well dogs on three legs can do. Because when I found out that she was going to have to lose a leg, I didn't know what to expect. I thought our lives would be sitting on the couch watching TV, I was fine with that because we would still be together, sort of thing. So I was fine with that. But I thought our days of long walks or of doing anything was over. And in fact, that was not the case. She was a very vibrant, active dog still. I didn't feel safe trying to do things like agility, doing jumps when she only had one remaining leg. So I kind of looked for something else to do with all her energy and intelligence. And that's when we started basically doing tricks.
Right. Did it take her a while or for you and for her? I'm just trying to imagine my dog losing a leg. Um, and there's a lot of things that go along with it. Did it take a while for both of you to adapt to this change?
Yeah, there was a learning curve. The hardest part was obviously the recovery stage, where you
Yeah.
kind of have some panic and doubt as, did I do the right thing? Was this the right choice? And but from there, she showed an incredible resilience. And, you know, sometimes you would just forget that she was even missing a leg.
Do you think that her story inspires people who are going through the same thing. There's a lot of dogs out there who have lost limbs, whether it's two or one, and people go to adopt them and they're a little skeptical, or you were worried, did I do the right thing? Do you think showing how well she did after should inspire people to adopt a dog that doesn't have all four legs and that life can still happen normal?
Yeah, I think people would be reluctant to maybe adopt a dog that had three legs. I also think a lot in the past, dogs were put down, especially larger dogs, because the thought was that they don't do well on three legs, larger dogs. And in fact, that's not the case. There are dogs that I have heard of much larger than Kaiserin was, and they still do well. So I wanted to get out there and show not only can this dog live a normal life, but she can do something even more exceptional. And that's why, we were doing tricks just to show what she was capable of.
Right. Now, she didn't just do tricks. I mean, this dog was pretty special. I don't know how you got her to learn how to do this, but she actually started to paint. What was that like?
Well, the painting for us at the start was just kind of another trick. We just there's a list of tricks you have to do to get the titles, and you can pick so many out of a longer list. And there were a few that we couldn't do because she did have some physical limitations. Like something like backing up and putting two legs up a wall. She couldn't do something like that. So
Right.
we would always go through and pick the tricks that I thought that she had the best chance of being successful at, which, that's what everybody does, but for maybe different reasons because of their dog's interests or capabilities. And, painting was just one of them. It wasn't really for us anything different at first. And I taught her to put a basketball in a little hoop, and I taught her to play a little piano. And so the painting, it was just one more thing we learned to do to get our title at first.
Right. And how long did she paint for then, Natasha?
She started painting, she was doing the titles early in 2019. Then we really started to pick up the painting later in the year. I produced a few pieces of art with her. I mean, I did it first for just the title where we didn't really use paint. We just kind of showed her that she could hold the brush and she could paint. But we didn't actually produce a lot of art. We had a few brush strokes. And then I thought, well, let's try and do a full painting. And we did that. And then I would give them away to people, to friends, like, here's a gift. Whether they wanted it or not, everybody I know got a Kaiserin painting at the start. And they would say to me, this is really cool. Do you know how cool this is? And, you should sell her art. And that's when we sort of stepped it up and started painting more and started to sell her art. And what made the most sense to me was to sell it to raise money for other dogs like her, which is why we decided to sort of partner up with the Tripods Foundation and raise money to help other three-legged dogs and cats as well. So when she was still around, we spent about a year and a half selling her art through an Etsy shop, and people seemed to love it. Like they were very inspired by it and, just so excited to watch this three-legged dog creating the art.
Yeah.
After she passed, I was dealing with not just the loss of her, but the loss of this program that this something I had started of the selling the art. And so that was even harder for me because I thought, can this project continue when I've lost my artist basically at that time.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry that she passed. I mean, it's always sad when a dog passes.
Yeah, well, the thing with cancer is it does have a tendency to come back. And so we had just over 2 years, and we really did a lot in those 2 years.
Yes, you did.
We really lived our lives and did things in that time that we had.
That's special. Now, sadly, she passed, but you have two new dogs, and somehow they're related. One of them are related, I believe. You've got a Schultz and Wilhelmina now.
Well, Schultz and Kaiserin were together. I had them at the same time. Schultz was very, very young. He was about 8 or 9 months old when Kaiserin was diagnosed with cancer. So he kind of got a little pushed to the side, because I spent a lot of time She had surgeries and radiation, and there was a lot going on. And I always felt kind of bad for Schultz that he got a little pushed to the side because so much attention had to go into caring for her.
Right.
And they were also very bonded. We would take her for radiation treatments that was a couple hours from our house. And I would take him along. He would come along for the drive. And after her treatment, he would lie in the car in the back with his head like right next to hers,
Oh,
providing
no.
her comfort. It was so touching. And he was just so young. He was under a year old, but he had this understanding that he should just be gentle and just be there with her. And so they would sleep in the back of my Jeep on the way home every time while she's sort of under the anesthesia still.
Right.
He was so wonderful with her and gentle with her after she lost the leg. And then when she passed, he was just devastated. He was
Sure.
lost. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was, I think, more like a mother figure to him. And I would find him sort of standing in the kitchen, just standing, like he wouldn't do anything. He would just stand there looking lost. And it took me a few days because I was also grieving myself. But then I felt, I need to really do something with this dog now. There's the one that got left behind. And I never put much effort into teaching him to paint prior to this. He did know how to hold a brush, and we'd done a little with him, but it was mostly more with Kaiserin because he was so young. But then we started to paint together with the goal of now selling his art to raise money for the same cause. And he just loved it. We just loved the painting. I think he loved the time we spent together. We both bonded more. And I always say we both healed together through the art.
It's incredible that Schultz has taken over and
Yeah.
is now the main painter. Do you think the dogs actually enjoy the painting?
They do. I mean,
They
I
do.
think my dogs they're a working breed and they like to do things. They don't like to just sit around. So they enjoy doing things and they pretty much will enjoy anything that we do together.
Right.
And I think what they like about the painting is how, when they do a big brush stroke, I get so excited, right? And I say, oh, yay! And they love it, that I'm excited and they get excited. And they also get treats. Like we usually use little pieces of chicken as motivators. So they
Right.
definitely like the treats as well.
Oh,
Wilhelmina, we got after Kaiserin had passed. So she was never with Kaiserin at all, like Schultz was. And I got her also because, Schultz being kind of lonely, I thought he needed another sibling in the house. Just by chance, I ended up being able to get the great niece of Kaiserin, who is like a dead ringer, looks exactly like her, acts like her in a lot of ways. And I immediately got her painting. She was painting at 4 months of age.
okay, that's incredible. Now I'm curious what they paint with. Do they paint with regular paintbrushes or are they specifically designed for the dogs to hold in their mouth?
Yeah, we tried a lot of things at the beginning. We tried just holding the brush,
Yeah.
and Kaiserin would actually paint with the brush in a wooden dowel, and that didn't work for Schultz. Different dogs are different. Schultz, when the wooden dowel went in his mouth, he wasn't holding it firm enough, and the brush would just roll down, and he'd paint his own chest. So what I came up with that I use now for Schultz and Wilhelmina is just that we have a styrofoam block and it's covered in a duct tape, so it's nice and soft on their mouths. And they hold the block and then they paint at the easel. And we use Kaiser basically because we were just starting out. She just used a basic brush, but now I use lots of different brushes that give different techniques. It's all a plain brush.
Right. Do you lay out colors for them and then they pick the colors they want? I mean, how does that work?
We do both. Sometimes I have, or maybe someone requests that they'd like a blue piece of art or a pink piece of art. And in that case, I pick the colors. But sometimes I like to just put all the paints in a pile, and they're very good at retrieving things because they are trick dogs. And I just say, go pick a paint, and I let them pick what they want. And sometimes it's a disaster of a whole bunch of different colors. I actually have one coincidentally
Let me
here.
see.
This was every year on their birthdays. they do a painting for me to keep, and I let them put the colors down in a pile and I let them pick 3 colors. And this is what Schultz did this year on his 9th birthday. And I'm very happy with this one because I think he did a good job. He picked a purple first. So we put the purple on and then we let it dry for a little bit. And then he came and got a sort of a turquoise blue. And then we put that, and then he went and picked a lighter blue. And he had like,
That's incredible.
yeah, he had like 30 colors to choose from, but he did a great job with this one.
No, you would never know that that was painted by a dog. You must be so, you must.
Yeah, definitely.
So this started as a fun project, and we sort of touched on this earlier. At what point did you want to help other dogs with cancer? What does all this provide, and why is it so important to spread the word about tripods and to help raise money for other tripods in the community?
Yeah, well, for me, this was all about sort of having a legacy for Kaiserin and doing something in her memory to help other dogs like her. And so we started selling Schultz's art, and then we sold Wilhelmina's art. And then I also had this idea about, I saw other dogs online that painted as well. And I had this idea, maybe we could have an online dog art auction. And we had our first one in 2021. So this year will be our 6th auction this fall. And I have dogs, painting dogs from all over the world. I think I probably know almost every painting dog that is out there. And they donate art, and we have an auction every year. And it was another way that we could raise some money to support the Kaiserin Cancer Care Package program.
Mhm. Yeah, you mentioned that you've got dogs from all over that their art is being sold. Can I ask how many pieces of art you've sold of Kaisers and Schultz's and Wilhelminas since you started?
Oh, I think we've sold about, I think about 400
Wow.
from in this 6 years.
So that's a lot of families that you've helped by doing this. A lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Have you met any of the families that have been deeply touched emotionally with their dog going through cancer, losing a limb, and then seeing what your dogs have done? Have you met some of those families?
I've I've had a lot of people online that have reached out to me saying that, that Kaiserin's story inspired them, and that also that, it made them see that everything is going to be okay with their dog losing a leg. And, now we send out through the Tripods Foundation, we send out 2 care packages every month to a dog or cat that's lost a leg to cancer. And these packages, they have lots of useful items in them, like a harness, which is very important when your dog's recovering, supplements, a few ebooks on the topics that are relevant for tripods, and interactive toys that they can use when, that they're recovering, that something that they can do that's less active. Things like that are all part of the care package, but also it's about sending support as well. Just something to help in a really bad moment when they're finding out their dog has to lose a leg or has just lost a leg. We have a little card that has Kaiserin's story on it, and they have a little bandana that says, "I love tripods," and just something to let them know they're not alone and that everything is going to be okay.
I think that community that you're part of and that you've really built is incredible because, like I said, I've spoken to some people and I've seen it's a scary ordeal, and you're letting them know that it's okay. There will be light at the end of the tunnel, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, when I was going through this, the sort of realization that this would have to happen, that my dog would have to lose a leg, that's when I found the Tripods Foundation. I turned to them to see, if I could understand what life would be like. And I would post on the message boards during the recovery in moments of panic where it was a bad day, a few days after the surgery when she seemed to be in a lot of pain. And I would go there, and they have all these wonderful volunteers who, answer these messages and, told me that, hang in there, it will be okay. You'll come out the other side. And that's when I wanted to become a part of this community in some way and also give back.
I think it's great. Now that was started by Renee and Jim, is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, because when I reached out to it's funny because I reached out to them, they said, "Well, you have to talk to Natasha."
Well, I've kind of made it like dog art is now a part of the tripawd community.
Yeah.
Now I brought this new thing of dog art into their world.
But you're showing, you're helping to raise money. You're bringing awareness to tripods. I mean, you're doing so much. And Renee and Jim seem like terrific people, and they're doing a lot. And their website for anybody who is going to go through this or has gone through this and is dealing with a lot of questions, this is a great place, a great resource to get answers to your questions. Because as you said, you can post online and somebody will answer you back. So you've got that support.
Yeah, they actually have a toll-free line that somebody 24 hours a day, if you feel like you're in a crisis, and it can be, sort of an emotional crisis as well, that you can call and speak to somebody that's been through this, that understands.
I think that's really important. I wanted to ask you a couple things. You mentioned to me something earlier about a painting of Kaiser's that somebody took a photo of in Rome. There's a story about Rome and one of her pieces of art.
Yeah, I went through a time where a lot of times the art would be purchased and it would go out, and I would never really see what happened to it or know where it went. There were certainly people who would send messages saying how wonderful it was and how inspired they were. And there were people who were going through, um, you know, a lot of people who had dogs with cancer, not necessarily losing it, like just cancer in general, who got pieces of art in memory of their dogs and things like that. So I saw some of where it went, but I didn't see a lot of where the art went. So I started on the back of the painting asking people to take a photo in their town or wherever they were, um, and send it to us or tag us on Instagram and show us where the art is. The most special one for me, and it was actually coincidentally not long before Kaiserin passed, was a girl in Rome sent me a message one day and said, "Oh, I got the painting. I loved it. Would you like me to photograph it by the Colosseum?" And I said, "Yeah, definitely, sure." And it took her a while to get there because it was during COVID lockdowns, but there was a nice picture of her art next to the Colosseum.
Okay, that's amazing. So these pieces of art are all over the world then.
They are, yeah. Yeah, yeah, we have, um well, we have a lot in Canada and the US. That's the main, 6 Canadian provinces, 36 US states, and then 10 countries, 10 different countries.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. It's always exciting when I can add a new country to the list.
You need to get one of those to Ricky Gervais because I know he's a huge animal advocate and he loves German Shepherds. And I know I had asked you earlier if anybody famous had bought a painting. We've got to work on that. I got to help you with that
Yeah.
one.
Well, they're beautiful pieces of art. Who wouldn't
They
want one?
are. I know. I'm gonna send him a photo. I'm gonna bug him on Instagram and see if I get a response. I'll let you know when I do. Now, this has all been, you've had your ups and your downs. I know what it's like to have a dog. I know what it's like to lose a dog. I know the pain and the grief. And that journey has certainly changed me. It was one of the reasons I started this podcast was in honor of my dog. How has this journey changed you as a person? And what has the dogs taught you about resilience?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed me. For one, I'm here doing this,
Yeah.
and I was always kind of a more quiet, shy person who I could never have imagined that I would be out here doing things. But I've done, some radio interviews and live Instagram things, and so it's sort of forced me out of my shell into the world a little. But it's also watching Kaiserin and watching her handle this challenge of manipulating or going through life with three legs. It really taught me that you can do anything. You can be resilient. When life throws you some type of challenge, really just need to keep going because you can do it. And that's how I approach any challenges that I have in life now.
That's a good piece of advice. Or you've really spread your wings, Natasha. You've really come out of your shell. I know you're in London. I believe you're in London, Ontario, which I know quite well because I'm originally from Toronto and used to drive to London almost every weekend. So, for those of you that don't know, the drive from Toronto to London is, I think it's about 3 hours if I remember right. But in the wintertime, it's the snow belt. So it's covered in snow and it's very flat and it's very boring. And
There's a lot
it's
of
very
traffic. There's a lot of
just a
traffic.
lot of traffic. Yeah. So from London to seeing your dog's paintings all over the world is amazing.
Yeah,
Not only that, but you decided to write a book.
I did. Yes. Yeah. It was just published in the fall, and I had to have my first book signing at a local bookstore this Sunday. It takes some time to get into these things, and so we've got it for this Sunday. I I had sort of always wanted to write a book, and I had ideas here and there, and once I went through this journey with Kaiserin, and I learned so much about life, I wanted to just write about the journey, and I also wanted to help others know sort of the details of the emotional aspects of finding out your dog has cancer, finding out they need an amputation. I go into a little bit of detail about what the recovery was like to try and help others like us, but also it's just more about a story of sort of a woman and her dog and what I learned about life from um, being lucky enough to have her.
If somebody wants to order the book, where can they get it? And the other question I wanted to know is if somebody wants to find you on Instagram, what's your Instagram handle?
The main Instagram that we use is at the Life of Schultz,
Okay.
and we have an Etsy shop where you can buy art. That's art for the number four, art for tripod Kaiserin. And obviously, we don't have art from Kaiserin anymore, but we do. I also sell these greeting cards that feature 12 pieces of Kaiserin's art, and it has her story on the back.
Yes, that's incredible.
Yeah, so we have art like this, like Schultz and Wilhelmina's painted art, but then I put some art on greeting cards, which features all her story and 12 pieces of her art. So
And can people buy that on Etsy?
yes, that's on Etsy. Yeah, and
Okay, and what is it again?
the book's on Amazon.
The book's on Amazon, okay, but the art is art for
Yeah,
the number 4.
tripod, or TRIPAWD,
Yeah.
and then Kaiserin, then just her name.
Okay, I think that's an amazing idea. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Any final words for people who are thinking of adopting a tripod or, um, I know we've touched on the difficulties of the initial shock of having to lose your dog's leg, but any advice that you have for people? Any important messages that you'd like to share with them?
I mean, I would say if you find out that your dog does need to lose a limb, which is very often to cancer, I would say, you know, don't be afraid of it. Just try to embrace the change and figure out how to live a new life. And also, yeah, don't be afraid to adopt a tripod either, because there's a lot of really great dogs out there. Um,
Mhm.
that just happen to be missing a limb.
I think that's key. I mean, just because a dog has 3 legs or even 2, they can still have a full life, and people should not be afraid by that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Kaiserin's life was probably more full after her amputation than it was before,
Mhm.
probably because we put so much effort into, living our best life at that time as well.
Yeah. I think it's almost a gift.
Yeah, it was. It was sort of a horrible situation that turned into something wonderful.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. It really was a pleasure speaking with you and informing people not only I mean, I think it's amazing that your dogs paint, first of all. That's
Yeah.
incredible. And the paintings are really great. You can find them all over the world, but also just what you've done for the tripod community. Thank you for that. I think it's really important.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation with Natasha, and it's a great reminder that even in life's hardest moments, which we've talked about, there is still beauty to be created. Natasha, Kaiserman, Schultz, and Wilhelmina show us that resilience isn't just about surviving, it's about finding a way to give back, to lift others, and to turn love into something lasting. Because sometimes the most powerful healing comes from helping someone else through their pain. So, to everyone listening, if this story moved you, please share it because stories like this deserve to be told and they have the power to change lives. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening and being a part of the Dogs Devotion community. Well, we share the incredible bond between humans and dogs and how incredible and how resourceful dogs can be and how we can learn so much from them. Natasha, thank you for being, such a champion for that. I really appreciate it. And so do so many other people.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me and listening to my story.
Okay. Well, thank you. And everyone else, thanks for listening to A Dog's Devotion. I'm your host, Carla Basaki. Of course, you can follow along on Instagram at A Dog's Devotion #1. Until next time, give your dog a really big hug. Thanks. Thanks, Natasha. Nice meeting you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And that's a wrap on another unforgettable story from the heart, because when it comes to love, loyalty, and second chances, no one does it better than our dogs. They find us when we're lost, lift us when we're low, and teach us what true devotion really looks like. Thanks for listening, and remember, in this wild world, we're all just trying to find our way home. Sometimes it takes 4 paws to lead us there. So give your pup an extra cuddle today and cherish your time with him. Give him some extra treats too. I know he'll love them. This podcast is in honor of my best buddy, Max.